Okay, let me start anyway.
دعونا نبدأ.
Because a lot of us around the world, and I think it really is a lot of us around the world, are very concerned these days about our economy, where it's going. And one of the most important building blocks to economic diversification and hence equity is vocational education and training. Nevertheless, it's very often treated like the stepchild in education policies. We focus on initial education, we begin to focus on early childhood education, and we focus on higher education. But vocational education is second-hand. It's for those who cannot. But we give them a little bit anyhow. And my argument is, and the experiences I will focus on, is that vocational education is in fact an opportunity where head and hand can combine and which can build a very strong economy and an equitable economy. And I don't, even if we in Denmark come out as the most equitable society in the world, I don't say we got it. I'm in fact quite critical of our system at times. So anyway, here we are. So just to give you the Danish VET system, or vocational education and training system in a nutshell, it's an apprenticeship system. It roots back to the Middle Ages, just like the German and the Swiss system. The programs have a duration of 3 to 5 years. So the longest programs in terms of depth of knowledge, skills and competences correspond to short cycle higher education. Companies must be approved as apprenticeship companies, so the quality of the workplace as a learning place is hugely important, because 70% of the program of the learning occurs at work. But learning at work does not mean learning well at work. Schools must be accredited, and permeability is a must. So everybody has permeability options to tertiary professional education, and those that also take a dual qualification, German Abitur, French if you follow lycée, I can't remember what the certificate is called in French, then you can also go to the general tertiary system. And it has gradually and growingly become an outcome-based system with, in fact, very limited use of inspection costs. So we use our inspection efforts at those that are in deep trouble. Nevertheless, PISA has had a huge impact upon us. We like to think about ourselves as the most equitable country, or the country in the world. Nevertheless, we have concurrently seen that in spite of trying to tinkering on our education system, we have seen that there is a correlation between educational outcomes and parents' socioeconomic background, and in particular, children of first generation and second generation immigrants have fared poorly, particularly in terms of mathematics over time. And mathematics, as was said yesterday, is highly important to a society like ours that's increasingly becoming highly digitalized. So the higher order thinking around math, very, very important. So what have we done to address this issue? On one hand, we have raised the bar to get into vocational education and training. Why have we done this? Because we know just letting everybody in without having the minimum competences from the compulsory education system puts the burden on the vocational vocational education system. So we have introduced the minimum grades in math and in Danish. At the same time, we have introduced within the compulsory education system and after the compulsory education system, we have introduced preparatory pathways that gives credits also. So as you learn, you build, because our ambition is that 95% should complete minimum and upper secondary qualification. We're not quite there. Almost 94% do so. We have a basic 2-year program, and this is really for young people who used to be unskilled workers. They become semi-skilled. Again, this program gives credit. So if you complete this, because sometimes when you get this vocational touch upon things, then suddenly you also actually begin to improve in learning how to read, in math, because you can see it makes sense to do these things. So we have the basic semi-skilled qualification, giving access then again and an accelerated route to getting a full qualification as a skilled worker. You have the opportunity to, with a dual qualification, accelerated pathways for adults through recognition of prior learning, and then programs at different levels matching the labor market. And it's the social partners, so it's industry players, employees and employer organizations saying these are the programs where it makes sense to have qualifications at different levels. We have set with all through, we have had reforms all through our system. We have set some very, very simple targets for the vocational education and training system, saying more students must start vocational education right after school. It's too costly to have young people just doing nothing for several years before they start a program. Plus, we have the challenge that before we have seen many, many youth start several programs, and it costs the society about 9 million krona annually, that young people might choose 5 or 6 pathways, and finally they don't complete any of them. So that has been a target, and we can already see improvements in that respect. More people must complete a vocational qualification. We have had an issue with dropout in the preparatory program in the beginning. We have made a broad program where young people, because people are young when they start 15, 16 years, so they can navigate in a broader qualification area before they make their choice, to visiting companies, short-term visit out in companies and so forth. And we can see that the dropout is already, it's going the right way, so that is extremely positive among the very young. All students must be challenged to reach their highest full potential. It has always surprised me that VET excellence is measured on the ability of how many are sent out of vocational education and not within the vocational education. So it's also a matter of how many students are challenged to reach their potential within the vocational education system, taking subjects at higher level, bringing them in factory technicians levels. And then transition rates. We have the 4th lowest unemployment rate in Europe, or is it 3rd lowest? I looked at the rates here yesterday, and they're even lower now, the unemployment rates. For young people between 25 and 29, it's 3%, and for 16 to 24 years old, it's 7.8%. So this is to say that good vocational education systems also have a role to play in employment policies, in full employment, but only if they match labor markets, both in the short term and in the medium term. So what have we done in this also otherwise data and outcome-driven way? Well, we have the test and exam results with summative and formative assessment. Each student has his or her own personal learning plan. They built a learning portfolio, because we have found having this learning portfolio, if you're not very vocal, then it can actually help when you go out to find the apprenticeship place, and also later your first employment work job in the labor market, that you can show this is what I did through my learning pathway. This is actually what I can do. Whether you're a blacksmith, whether you're a welder, or whether you're a baker, or whether you are an automation technician, doesn't really matter. You can demonstrate what you can do. We have focused on completion rates, so dropouts as I mentioned, and very much focused on this difference between change to another education and then completion, or traveling through the education system and then dropping out towards the end and using the data to try and help students so they don't go these three hopeless pathways. Transition rates to tertiary education is also followed, and as I said, transition rates to the labor market. What we have also introduced is self-evaluation that Isabel talked about in the institutions. So all vet institutions define their targets and outcome-based targets against the overall targets, because socio-economic circumstances differ highly between vet institutions in the country, the students they have. So of course the targets will change, and it's about improvement of performance over time that we follow. These self-evaluation tools are up to the institutions actually to choose which one they want to use, but it has to be one of the recognized normal quality assurance frameworks that are used widely in this world, but even there the institutions have some autonomy. And it's up to the board and the school director to monitor and show and publish these data, because these data are available to everyone. So based on that, they annually also develop a didactic and pedagogical strategy on how to improve teaching and learning, because what was said earlier also, I think it was Anne who said, this is about teaching and learning quality. The labor market partners, they have a big and important role in annual assessment. What are the dynamics of the labor market? Where are the jobs? Right now we see an enormous job creation, for example, in manufacturing. So how do we use these short-term labor market data combined with more long-term vision of what's going on in the labor market type of studies we take, looking also into value chain dynamics, very important if you want to be an exporting economy, and so forth. And looking on the data on the apprenticeship place situation, because companies do not just come in like that saying, hey, we love to take people on work-based training. No, you have to nurture them, you have to service them, you have to help them. Latest, and this is my last slide, we have introduced, and I was head of that task force, we are very hot in Denmark on user-driven innovation. So who are the users, in fact, in a vocational education and training system? That is the learners, and that is the companies. So we have introduced compulsory surveys to all apprenticeship companies, assessing the quality of relations between the particular school that send apprentices to them, how well are they guided and helped to ensure the match, how well are they guided, how well prepared are the students in general, not the individual student. And in terms of student well-being, it's multidimensional, looking both in terms of the student's perception about the quality of teaching, the preparedness of teachers, the guidance, their ability to help them to find the apprenticeship place, and so forth and so forth, their ability to also function in the team, because in vocational education it's not just about the narrow vocational skills, it's also about collaborative skills, it's about problem solving that happens in groups. So how well does the education system nurture broader competences than just the narrow vocational competences? When I was heading that task force, I tell you, it was a lot of negotiation, because you don't get there unless you negotiate, because of course it's a new instrument. and how can we use it. All the data are available in a public data warehouse, very much like we hear from the Emirates about thinking about smart government, making data available so the students, so schools can use it to benchmark themselves or bench learn from themselves in the relevant communities. And what the ministry has also tried to do then is bring school communities together to sort of learn from each other how do we use this type of new data that we get then to improve the school system. And that was very fast, but thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I was thinking perhaps we could have one question or comment or observation before we break from lunch and then pick it up after them. Is that all right with you, Abdul Salam, our boss? Does anybody have a comment from their perspective? Sumaya.
First of all, thank you. I think it's sometimes we forget when we talk about student assessment to also look at vocational and the learning that we can get from what is done also in vocational. And just a question about the Danish system and how you dealt with inclusion and flexibility. We learned from PISA that the early tracking is detrimental, in particular in terms of impact of socioeconomic background on student performance, that it should be delayed, but it also needs to leave some flexibility to move from one type of programs to another. I don't know if this type of concerns being present in the Danish system.
I hope, but maybe I didn't spell it clear enough, is, well, we have put a lot of emphasis into early childhood education and reform of the school system. We have an almost 100% completion participation rate in early childhood education, 98.7 or something like that, so really high. But the main building block is really then thinking about the legal system. You all know the legal system. I come from a legal country. So thinking about building blocks, that there are no dead ends. And not only that there are no dead ends, but each building block gives a foundation for the next building block, so you don't have to repeat learning that already occurred. So throughout the system, recognition of prior learning is extremely important, and not just recognition of prior learning, what you have learned through the formal system, but also what you have learned through the informal system and non-formal system are really sort of key dimension to it. And at some point under the former government, and it was really the former government that implemented all these reforms, it should also be said, which, it was the former government that implemented all these reforms, and at that time, if you looked around the highest positions across the ministries, then in fact, all of them had a background originally being educated in the vocational education training system. This happened by coincidence, but it should be that way. But also in a digital economy, I think for all of us right now, it's hugely important to think about Industry 4.0. What does that really mean to work, and to how the composition of skills should look like, how the composition of qualifications should look like, how we ensure equity within those dynamics, so it's not just last person closes the door, so we have one or two or three persons hired here or there working, because we can't as a society support that.
لملء الثغرات في جوانب الأنشطة التي يحتاجها المكتب.
Yeah, what we were thinking is that we take actually a few more, any further questions or comments that you have specifically to Hannah about this topic, and then what we'll do is actually try to wrap up the seminar before lunch, because Abdul Salam tells me that a number of people won't be able to come back this afternoon, so perhaps we could spend 5 to 10 more minutes on this subject, and then we can collectively come together to think about how we can build on these seminars, how we can design them so that they're most useful in terms of connecting practice and expertise in the region with the OECD's evidence base, and really what you'd like to talk to us about in the future and with our colleagues. So perhaps another 5 or 10 minutes on this subject, and then we'll wrap up together. So
أنا عندي سؤال في المغرب عندنا تدابير ذات الأولوية. هناك تدابير سنتها الوزارة وهي ذات أولوية، من بينها الاهتمام بالتكوين المهني أو التدريب المهني. كيف ستنزل هذه التدابير؟ انطلاقا من التعليم الابتدائي هناك تحسيس بالمهن داخل الأقسام الابتدائية، ليس تكوينا مهنيا ولكن فقط تعرف المهن. وفي الإعدادي هناك التوجه نحو المسالك المهنية في التعليم الثانوي التأهيلي، أي في العاشر والحادي عشر والثاني عشر. وتم إرساء حاليا 21 بكالوريا مهني، من الطيران والسيارات إلى الفندقة إلى أشياء أخرى. هل ترون أن هذه التدابير مساعدة؟ شكرا.
I do indeed think Yes, I do indeed think so. We have 42% who choose a vocational upper secondary degree in Denmark, and we want to maintain that because the composition of the companies, the composition of our industry structure is like that. We're bridge building down into school as one thing, so students already from very early stage have opportunities to come out for 1 week to actually work in school workshops to see what it's like to be in a vocational setting. That is one thing. Another thing that we are beginning, and which my institute in particular is pushing very much, is also, since we're moving into digital economy, is the idea of Fab Labs. That is, you have 3D prints, you have various digital technologies that you use in different vocations, so students can come out and learn, wow, we can prototype a shoe, or we can do a component to a car, and they can use and work in these Fab Labs. You can set them up very, very cheaply. It gives them an interest in natural sciences and technical fields, and we have seen an immense demand from schools all over Denmark wanting to learn from this Fab Lab model, and you see in the United States that has been a really, really, really big success also to K-12 school improvement to embed this Fab Lab infrastructure in schools in hard-stricken areas. So that is an opportunity, definitely, also to focus towards technical careers.
الخليج وغيرها والدول العربية.
Are there any more questions or comments? I think I'd actually like to intervene, perhaps slightly provocatively, in the sense that there are some models for vocational education that work extraordinarily well. Obviously, the Danish model is one, German and Switzerland are others. But are they really replicable in different labour market and educational contexts? Because designing an effective vocational system is extraordinarily hard to do well, and to avoid the type of early tracking and this become a sort of second-class option for struggling students leading to a dead end. The reality of vocational education in most systems is that, and whether to what extent you feel, what are the key enabling conditions for the development of a good functioning, a strong vocational systems, and what are the alternatives? I'm just back from Colombia, where their education focus really is on expanding upper secondary education, and they're really faced with a dilemma. Do we try to build a comprehensive approach where there are modules for specialisation, or should we really try to develop a twin track system where students at that level will choose between a general education and vocational system? And when you look at Colombia, you think that all the factors there would suggest that if you try to develop a twin track system, that would just lead to deeper inequities, because you just don't have the resources, you're not able to work with students to identify their preferences and capacities. So it's really how do you do it? Can you do it elsewhere, and what would make that happen?
Well, that's a very complex question. I've done quite a lot of reviews of ed systems around the world, so in that sense I agree with you. You cannot look at ed systems in isolation. You have to think about, first of all, look at the wider economy, and where is your wider economy at this particular stage before you actually begin to design an instrument such as vocational education and training. I think we've seen a lot of trouble in countries that have tried to adopt just the German model, because it builds in chambers, and a lot of countries don't have chambers and so forth. In fact, should maybe be said right now that all the old apprenticeship systems in Europe are putting together a toolbox, not to say if you look at these 6 countries and take a little bit here and a little bit there, then you're all in and set, but it's an element in reflection, because all systems in one way or another do have vocationally oriented youth education systems, or they have systems that split children out in a direct vocational and a direct academic pathway at an early stage. I think definitely if I look at systems, or the most advanced systems now are saying children should have the opportunities. If you also want to attract most talented students to vocational education, then they should have the opportunity for dual qualifications also at the upper secondary level, and all in all there should be building blocks. But you again, if you look at the economy, rather than maybe making a vet system for your whole economy, then looking at your economic sectors and saying, are you, for example, trying to push clean tech, or are you trying to push advanced manufacturing in pharmaceuticals? Well, you cannot just do with engineers. However, if you jump on your nose, or if you want to make smart buildings, you cannot just do with engineers. You have to have skilled workers, technicians. So then focus on those sectors where it makes sense to have that qualification level, point A, point B. Then you'll also have the employer commitment to have a demand-driven system, because otherwise you end up with all these poor, pure school-based vet systems that in effect, most of them, they cheat young people. They cheat young people and the parents into having a belief they have a certificate that has value in the labor market, and it does not. And they end up in underemployment, unemployment, in gray labor markets. So that, of course, I cannot defend. But therefore, if it was the case of Colombia, and now I don't know the Colombian economy well enough, but I would start looking at the value chains and say, where is it Colombia can move up the value chain, because those sectors I would focus on to build vocational education and training system. And guaranteed I would get the employers on board.
Are there any other questions before we wrap up? I think before we pass over the floor to our very generous hosts, I'd just really like to thank everybody and say how much I think not only us at the OECD, but the people who've come with us have learned from listening to you today. As we said, we hope this is one of a series of seminars where we can bring together the experience from OECD countries and the countries that we work with, and your experiences here, so that we can learn together and improve our education systems and the knowledge base that feeds into improvement. I think we have a couple of ideas of where, building on sort of where the discussion has really got going over the last 2 days, where we might like to focus. I think we could certainly envisage a seminar much more focused on student assessment in the broadest sense, and or as well school evaluation systems, and really how you make that transition toward from external to internal accountability and self-evaluation. And I think those are interesting areas, but there may be others. The OECD is about a huge amount more than PISA, and we've done a tremendous amount of work, in particular with Hannah's input, and working with many countries in our membership and outside on vocational education. And I know that may not be a priority necessarily for the individuals in the room from assessment institutions, but though that is a dimension, but from governments here, that the role of vocational education and really building diversified economies, that could also be a subject for discussion. But we'd like to hear from you. I know that Abdul Salam, I think, has sent or will do a questionnaire to you about where you'd like to, how you'd like to work with us, and how we can make these sort of events useful and enriching for everybody. But really thank you. It's been very interesting listening to you, and I hope we'll continue our discussions over lunch and by email in the future. Thank you very much, and really thank you to ABEGS for hosting this and getting this going.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We are very grateful for
نحن ممتنون ومقدرون لحضور وحضور الخبراء
for these 2 days.
خلال هذين اليومين.
We have achieved some of our goals, and I think we will continue doing that with our high caliber experts. I should thank very much Elizabeth, Sumaya, Isabella, and also I would like to thank Peter and Margaret participating with us from abroad. Thank you all for your presence here, and we had a very successful session here yesterday and today, and I think we will continue, and we will be willing, to do it another time, sometime in the future, and I think our experts will be pleased to cooperate with us, and we are looking forward to it. That's what I have to say. Thank you very much for everything you've done for us these 2 days. أشكركم جميعا من جميع المؤسسات وممثلي الدول الأعضاء، وإن شاء الله نوفق في الاستمرار في إعداد مثل هذه الورش الجيدة. شكرا لكم جميعا، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We will be together for lunch now. Thank you.
أنتم مدعوون لتناول طعام الغداء.
I think we need a photo. We need a group photo for us, please.